Today on the show,
I'm going to get to my passive income number. So that's going to create my financial, quote unquote, independence.
building a passive income empire. Have you ever wanted to try and build a real estate investment portfolio that largely provides passive income? Matt Theriault has done it. He's got a really interesting story. He's the guy behind the Epic Real Estate podcast and has built a business really since about 2003. First as a real estate agent, and then later developing systems to develop a passive income stream for himself. He's passionate about it, and the story of how he did it is a pretty inspiring one, and I think you'll enjoy it. I was really fascinated by your biography because it's a unique one, and I'd like to maybe set it up for the audience a little bit because your story is an inspiring one. You were in the Army, I believe. You fought in the first Iraq War in the Desert Storm.
Marine Corps. Marines don't want to be confused with the people in the Army.
I apologize.
And vice versa too, just to be fair. But go ahead.
And then you moved into the music business quite successfully for more than a decade, which all kind of came to a crashing halt once digital downloads became the norm in the early 21st century. Can you talk a little bit about that early part of your life and I guess where you were left after that phase of your career kind of hit the skids?
Sure. Yeah. When I was in high school, I got dabbled into the music business and was DJing and producing and made a few bucks. And that's really what I wanted to do. But I was getting really close to where I was going to turn 18, and I didn't know if I was going to be allowed to stay in the house any longer. So I was concerned about having a roof over my head. So I did the logical thing like anyone would do and got the backup plan to join the Marine Corps. And I joined as a reservist thinking I was just going to always have a plan B. At least I'd always have a roof over my head. I'd always be able to eat. And then I could potentially, if the music thing didn't work out, I could get access to this GI Bill thing and go to college later. So that was my master plan. And as soon as I got into the Marine Corps, we hadn't been in a war or any sort of conflict in a couple decades. And all of a sudden, all of us reservists were activated for war, and now it's full-time duty. So I got pulled out of the music business and into a full-time Marine, and did that. I don't know, I was active for longer than I was a reservist. And then once the war kind of settled down, I started reaching out to all my past contacts, and all of a sudden found out we were still hot. We were still relevant. Myself and the other artist, we had a small little group together, and we got a recording contract, but I still had another, 9-10 months left on my contract with the Marines. So we had sent that request through the chain of command, and it went all the way up to the base general and requesting to get out a little bit early so I could take advantage of this opportunity. And the general said, sure, no problem. You served your country. We won the war. I don't want to stand in your way. Just don't forget me when you're famous. And that's kind of how that all went together. And I spent the next 12, 13 years in the music business doing pretty well for myself. And then that digital download thing came along and just turned that whole industry upside down. And in probably 6 months, I went from the previous year of 7 figures to the age of 34, bagging groceries for $7 an hour.
Like what a head spin it must have been, and how detrimental it must have been to your psychology. I mean, you were kind of riding high for a long time through your 20s and into your early 30s, and now you're literally begging groceries again. Can you talk about how you dealt with that? Because I know a lot of folks listening right now deal with these sorts of problems, right?
Sure.
It can have just a hugely detrimental impact just on your self-confidence. How did you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, how did I deal with it? Not gracefully, that's for sure. I blamed everybody and everything on my situation. I mean, I was 34. I thought I was set in what I was going to do the rest of my life, and I'd gotten there relatively easily. Like I didn't have to wake up and exercise any sort of disciplines and force myself with to-do lists and goals. And I just got up and did what I did, and I got paid for it. And it was just a beautiful life. So, doing that for so long, I didn't bother to learn anything else. I didn't have a plan B. It had just come so easy to me. And all of a sudden I woke up and there I am. I'm bagging groceries. I'm taking my lunch breaks with 16-year-olds and, making like $240 a paycheck. And it was just like, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, this used to be my appetizer happy hour bill,
Yeah.
And it was,
if you don't mind me asking, like you're talking about making 7 figures and doing really well. What happened to the money? Were you just a young guy just living large and it was all gone?
Oh, good question. No, I mean, in hindsight, it's crystal clear what happened. At the time it was happening, it was a mystery, because I mean, the music industry had been the way it was for so long, and it was such a stable, I don't know, community or business. And people went and you recorded records, and they went out and they bought it. They went to music stores and bought CDs, bought records, bought cassettes. And we had a very simple formula to where we knew exactly how much to put into our advertising each month, exactly where to place that. And we could count on, a great return. Like, we never got on the radio for too much. We never were on MTV. But we had this little underground independent hip hop following that supported us. And, we'd sell 30, 40,000 units a month. And that would be, at $8 profit per, that was a good living. And then there's one month where our formula just noticeably worked a lot less. I mean, it was almost instant. And we were like scratching our heads like, well, maybe the record wasn't as good as we thought it was. So we released another record the following month, and it worked even less, and then worked even less. And like I said, we had no idea what was happening. So we just kept throwing money at the problem. And in 6 months, we were out of money.
Wow. Could you share with us the name of the group you were associated with?
Yeah, well, I was a music producer, so I was much more behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. But that original group was called Shakespeare and the Lumberjack.
Oh, we'll check it out.
I don't think I've ever said that on a podcast before.
Oh, you have.
But here you go. You got the exclusive. And but yeah, that we were signed, and we were on the same label as Weird Al Yankovic. So we were a little bit of a novelty hip hop group, and they thought we were cute and smart. So
oftentimes people say the worst moments in their life or the darkest times are really those moments that make them who they are as they move forward. And they'll look back at those times and feel like those were had the greatest impact on their success moving forward. Do you kind of see that looking back on that, and that it kind of shaped you as a business owner and becoming a real estate investor? Or does it still seem just like a real shitty moment in your life?
Yes and yes. I think what the pivotal moment there was I didn't realize what I had created on my own. I didn't know how to be intentional about recreating it. But I really got the message or the lesson that, if it's gonna be, it's up to me. And that was one part. The second part was, although I made a lot of money in music, like we did really well, I was still dependent on putting out that next record each month to keep the machine going. And I saw how quickly it could be taken away from me. And I took that lesson into real estate that's what made me really attracted to passive income and cash flow investing. It's why, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad just resonated with me so much. I was like, oh my God, this is the answer to my dreams. It's the answer to the rest of my life, because I am never going back to bagging groceries again. So that's what really built the conviction, I think, during that low point.
Awesome. Yeah. And then so out of that bagging groceries, how did you move into real estate, and how long was that transition, and what did that learning curve look like for you?
Sure. Yeah. I was doing the grocery thing, the paper plastic thing, for about 6 months. And it took about 6 months for it to settle in, like, wow, this is what it's going to be for the rest of my life if I don't do something. And I kind of entered a level of, went from rage when I started there into like depression and kind of this feeling of helplessness. And the grocery store manager we happened to be the same age. He was 34. I was 34. He'd been working there since I think he was 16 years old. It was his first job in high school, and he'd been there ever since. And so he and I, we got along, we connected, and he had noticed one particular day, and I'll just make a long story short, but there's one particular day I was really feeling crappy. And he said, Matt, come up to my office. Let's talk for a second. And he said, what's up? And I just kind of told him everything I just told you. Like, this is my life story. This is where I am now. And I don't know what the hell to do now. And he said, and these are the words that if you've listened to the podcast, like you were saying, Brian, 100 times you've heard me say this at least once, real estate is the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth. And it was that grocery store manager that shared that with me. And at that moment, I was like, wow, if this is the final frontier, I don't have a plan B. I know I have to learn how to do something new. And if that's the final frontier for real wealth, I'm going to go learn how to do that. So that's where the decision process came from, was that I just wanted money and I wanted the best. I had to go learn the thing that was going to give me the best shot at recreating the former lifestyle that music gave me. And so that night I took a bottle of wine home and started searching Google for everything real estate, ran into an aunt that was the number one real estate agent. I hadn't seen her in 15 years, but she was the number one real estate agent just 2 cities over from me. Fired off an email that night to have lunch. She responded in the morning. We had lunch that day, and I think I was in school to be a real estate agent, get my real estate license within 24 hours of me sending that email, or of us having lunch. And so I did that. I mean, that just seemed like, if you're going to get into real estate, that was all I knew. Let's go get a real estate license. I guess that's how I'm supposed to do it. And of course, her being an agent, she was an advocate of that. And I did really well my first year. I got Rookie of the Year the first year. I did better the second, and better the third, better the fourth. And just came to the realization that, wow, if real estate is the final frontier where this average person can create this massive amount of wealth, I really woke up at that moment and said, I'm sitting on the wrong side of the desk. Because I had a couple clients that were just crushing it. And although they were good to me and they were great clients and they paid me my full commission, they just faxed over listings to me. They faxed over purchases to me. And I just took care of the paperwork and I got paid really well. But I really saw at the end of the day, looking at the HUD statements as to what they were making. And I was like, I want to be on that side. So that's when I made that. That's kind of how when that transitioned from grocery store to real estate agent. And at that moment, Matt, I decided I was going to be a real estate investor.
Matt, you were a traditional agent for what, 4 or 5 years before you transitioned into buying properties?
Yeah, about 3.5 years.
Okay. Yep. And then what did the first deal look like for you?
Yeah, so the first deal, well, if you've been an agent, I don't know if you guys have licenses?
I do. Yeah.
Have you been
Danny is more
you've been a traditional agent?
Talk show host guy from NPR. But I started out as a real estate agent in 2004 and kind of transitioned through that whole thing into becoming an investor probably after 6 years.
Got it. Yeah. So I guess reasonably, pretty close. Within a couple of years, we started kind of the same time. But you know that being a real estate agent and being a real estate investor are two completely different animals. I mean, people on the outside looking in and think they're similar, but they're not. Right. They're totally different. And so I had made a large investment in my education, and fortunately, I found a really good program right out the gate. And I was at that moment, I was just like, I'm surrendered to the system and surrendered to their ways.
What was the name of that program? That first program you got into?
It's not around anymore, but it's called Nouveau Riche.
Yeah,
have you heard of it?
I have.
Yeah, so I got started at Nouveau Riche, and I don't know, they've been out of business for probably a decade now. But I was attracted to this one strategy called Creative Acquisition Strategies, or this one course called Creative Acquisition Strategies. And it was all about driving for dollars and how to contact the seller and then create these creative offers. And so I was just driving up and down the street, found one, called the seller and had it under contract. And this was inside of 60 days of me making this commitment to be an investor. And it was a property that was abandoned. The guy that was, he had the single family residence and he had plans to turn it into a fourplex, and he ran out of money midstream. And so I was able to pick up the slack where he left off, found some money partners and found a contracting partner. And we went and did that deal. And at that very first deal, I made about $26,000. And I was like, yep, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. That first deal. Yep. Yeah. That gets you hooked when you get that big paycheck.
It did. And it was probably 8 months till I got my second deal. So that was a whole other story.
And so why did it take you so long in that period of time to get a second deal?
That first one came so easy that I don't think I really recognized how much work you actually have to do to get a deal, you know, when it comes to prospecting, and it's a numbers game. And I was in Southern California, which is a much more competitive market. And I started to really recognize how far relationships go, and it takes time to build those relationships. And so I don't think I worked that hard for those 8 months, just kind of waiting for the thing to fall in my lap, and kind of realized it's not going to.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to underestimate the difficulty in getting a deal.
Yep.
Especially when you're a new guy.
Yep.
Because even for experienced guys, it's always a grind to some degree to find a deal. And so now, what's your business? What's happened over the past year since you've gotten that first and second deal, and how has that kind of changed over time?
Sure. So, I made that $26,000, that one deal in over 8 months. That was long gone. So I found myself essentially broke again. And I stumbled across I don't know if I stumbled upon it or just kind of it connected one night. The light bulb went off. So I was going through, it was actually through Craigslist. And they have a section there, real estate for sale. And then they have another section called real estate wanted. And I just started calling through Craigslist and finding out what these 10 buyers needed and find out what these 10 sellers needed. I started playing matchmaker, start getting in the middle. And I would call the sellers and say, hey, if, this might not be a good fit for my portfolio, but if I happen to find somebody that it is a good fit for, would there be room for a referral fee for me? And I'd go through all the buyers and make a note of what they would say. And then I'd go all the sellers, and I'd go to the buyers. I'd ask the same thing. Okay, I don't have what you're looking for right now, but I'm talking to a lot of people this week. I might find it. If I happen to find it, would there be room for a referral fee for me? And so I was collecting referral fees from both sides on playing matchmaker. And that's how I started, like, really picking up the steam as far as my business goes.
Right. And then you moved into buy and hold over the course of your real estate career. Could you maybe talk about what that portfolio looks like now? And
sure. Yeah. Through that same practice, that classified ad strategy, and through Craigslist, I started to run across all kinds of people that had all kinds of opportunities. And there was one gentleman who had a bunch of houses. I think it was like 35, 36 houses, like out of state, but he had them. He wanted to dump them, but he was willing to carry the paper. And so I said, I'll take them. So I went and got all of them under contract and sold about half of them, took the money from those sales, all those wholesales, and put it down on the other half and kept those for myself. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I just kind of projected out and did the math. I was like, I'm only making $200-$300 a month per property, but I'm going to get to my passive income number. So that's going to create my financial, quote unquote, independence much quicker doing it this way than I would be flipping all the properties I was doing previously, even though I was making good chunks of money, to make that enough money to save it, to put it somewhere where it's going to spit off a residual income to you. It's like you got to work 5 times as hard. You got to do 5 times as many deals to make it work that way. So I just exercised a little bit of patience with the buy and hold. And from that point forward, every deal that came across my table or my desk, it was my intent to hold it. I didn't hold every one of them, but it was always my intent. And here we are. I got my portfolio all the way up to almost 400 units. And right now I sit at holding 50 properties and 50 notes on properties.
Wow. And are you meeting your passive income goals at this point, or do you still got a little ways to go?
Yeah, for my personal existence, yes. It doesn't cover the company overhead, but I could shut it down and
right.
just be done anytime that I want. So that's a good feeling.
So are you still are you still heavily in the acquisition side of your real estate business? Are you still constantly sourcing deals, buying deals?
Yep. We've got 3 levels of our business. We've got our education platform, of course, where we show people how to do it. But then we have our turnkey operation, where we work with busy professionals, doctors, lawyers, people that earn a high income but just don't have the time to go out and invest. So we do it for them. And then we have our fund, where we conduct all of our own personal investing. And then people can buy shares in that fund to essentially hop on our backs and go along for the ride. But yeah, we're actively building that fund.
Cool.
I'm trying to get that as big as I possibly can.
What types of properties are you looking to acquire?
Mostly single family. It's just what I know. We dipped into multifamily for a little while and really got our ass handed to us a couple times, just with some bad decisions. And so I kind of reverted back to single family because I was good at it. It's what I know. I can't say I'll never do multifamily again. I'm just waiting for that right opportunity to come along. But what I do now, it works. So
Right. And are there certain markets that you're looking
Yeah.
at?
So being a cash flow investor, it kind of excludes both of the coasts from doing that. So we're all in the Midwest and the South. We're in 10 different markets through the Midwest and the Southern United States.
Yeah. Is it all virtual for you?
Yeah, because we're in Los Angeles, but our teams, we have 5 of our own teams and then 5 other teams that we leverage, and we manage them from here in Los Angeles. But we do have
Right. So how does that look? Are those property management companies that you hire?
Yes, exactly. And
to,
we have someone
do
here in the
that?
office that
Right.
just manages property managers for us.
Oh, okay. And so, and you look so you have 10 markets that you would consider. What's your acquisition strategy look like in those markets, and how do you bring properties into your business?
Let's see. I would say most of it comes from our relationships. And I can't stress that enough of how important that is to build your relationships in the beginning. It might not result in fast transactions, but it will allow you to go much further in the business once you do that. But I'd say half of them come from, maybe 60% of them come from our relationships. And we are working pay-per-click pretty aggressively. We're working Facebook pretty aggressively. We've got some really good strategies that are generating those opportunities for us. And then we still do direct mail.
You still do direct mail. And so could you talk a little bit about pay-per-click and Facebook? I don't think we've really touched on somebody that's we've had some pay-per-click and Facebook marketers in, but they were running campaigns for people. And I think you could probably speak better on the specifics of real estate and maybe how the conversions work and that sort of thing.
So pay-per-click, it's, if you go to Google and you search something, then you're going to get a certain number of organic results, and then you're going to get paid results. And when you click on those paid results, those advertisements at the top, the person that placed that advertisement has to pay for that click. And so you're optimizing for certain keywords. So, we're trying to buy keywords, like anyone that types in our market, they type in, how do I sell my house without a realtor? Like that long form keyword, long tail, they call it, or sell my house fast as is, get cash for my house. So I think we got like 600, 700 combinations of those types of phrases. So anyone in our market that types that in, or a very close variation of it, our ad comes up. And when they click on it, it takes them to our landing page, and then they read a little bit about our company. And if they want a fair offer from us, we promise them a fair offer, all cash, and they submit their information. That comes right to us, and we get a little text notification on our phone.
Mm-hmm. Right. So they send that through, you get the text notification, somebody calls them and qualifies that lead. And then based on what they say, we'll determine how quickly you go to the property, or if you maybe refer it to an agent or something like that.
Exactly.
Right. Probably. Right. And what are you paying per click in these markets that you're in?
Right now, we're probably between $80 and $125. Not a click. That's a lead. I'm sorry. That's a lead. Yeah.
Oh, per lead, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're actually running ads for you're in Connecticut, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a client in Connecticut that we are running ads for there, and we're doing really well for her. We're getting about $80 a lead for her.
Oh, really? And then what's the conversion on those leads?
It's brand new. She's only been with us for about 3 weeks. So I think she's in talks with 2 of those people they look like they're going to be deals.
Right. I mean, so you historically on Google AdWords, do you have any idea what that conversion might be?
It's pretty high. I mean, they're expensive leads, but it's pretty high because these are the people that are looking for you. It's not like you're trying to attract them to you. They went proactively online to try and find someone just like you that provides the service that you provide. And the key to that, the conversion key is how quickly can you get back to them? I think speed is the name of the game with those types of leads.
Right, because they're clicking around, putting their name and number into a lot of different forms.
Exactly. They went to the next person. So,
right. And then, so how about Facebook advertising? How are you guys advertising on Facebook, and how effective have you found that?
Sure. There's a few different ways that we're doing that. We did a test with our postcards, our direct mail. We used to just put a phone number because I didn't want to put a website on there because I didn't want people to go read about us and kind of make up their mind without us having to be able to talk to them whether we were a good fit for them or not. So we'd always just put a phone number so we could be that contact them directly. But what we started doing was putting Facebook pixels on our landing pages. And so whether they call us or go to the website, if they call us, obviously we get to talk to them. If they go to the website, now we can follow them all around Facebook. And we started doing that with our Google campaigns as well.
Oh, you like that, huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then your face pops up on every corner of the internet for them.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of branding between the mailing pieces that we send and then our online media stuff. So they look similar, so you can tell it's probably from the same company.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just follow them around on the internet like that, and that's worked really well. The other thing that works really well for us is we'll place just videos, just helpful videos for someone that wants to sell their house fast, and there's no call to action or anything in it. We try to be extremely charitable with the information that we give, and people will start liking those, and they'll start making positive comments because we're not asking for anything in return. We're just giving good advice and helpful advice. And once they like or comment, they've just identified themselves that this is good information. So now we can direct message them, and we start a conversation that way as well. So that's been working well.
Right. So what are those tips and hints to sell your house quickly?
Well, it's really, most of it has to do with the title of the video, because you want them to at least stop and watch it. Because there's another part of that is if they watch it for a certain period of time, you can build a custom audience out of those video views. So if someone watches 50% of your video, that's probably someone that had a genuine interest in what you actually had to talk about.
Right.
So
and they might remember you as well. So it might be something like, if you want to sell your house fast, here's 7 tips, and it might be remove the clutter, clean up around the outside, and mow your lawn. And
there you go. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Like that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of our best performing ones is how to sell your house fast for top dollar in this market. And we run through a whole video of how to sell it for top dollar. Like, you should probably call a real estate agent. And then, but if you want to sell it fast, then here's the alternatives. So it kind of separates. Like, if you want to, it just identifies the real person that really wants to talk to us, and it forces everybody else just go call a real estate agent. They'll do a better job for you than you could do by yourself.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the other side to this, you're sending direct mail, and everybody sends pretty typical yellow letter, postcard, things like that. But the magic comes in the list that you're mailing to, because the better the list, the less mail you have to send, and the better your conversion, I would imagine. What do your lists look like, and how are you gathering this data, and then how are you marketing to these people?
We don't have a secret source of where we get our data, but we will start really wide and start laying additional factors on top of that list to narrow that list down. So, we might take absentee owners for a couple counties that are all close to each other, adjacent counties. And then we'll say, okay, we got these absentee owners. How about all these absentee owners that have, say, tax liens on them, or some sort of court judgment, something like that on there, some sort of lien on those properties. And then that'll narrow the list down significantly, then we might lay another factor on top of it. Okay, which ones are owned free and clear? And so we just kind of keep laying factors on top of each other that would signal some sort of motivation on the seller's part.
Right. So, yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that. I think they call it list stacking. A lot of people call it list stacking.
We call it factor stacking, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And so I've also been hearing a lot of people are moving away from direct mail and have started cold calling a lot more, and skip tracing, and having just dedicated callers. Have you guys explored that possibility at all?
It's funny. I just interviewed somebody on my own podcast today that just started a cold calling school online. But we have not. I started as a real estate agent doing lots of cold calling, and I really don't ever want to do that again.
Right. Yeah. But I think these people set up virtual assistants overseas. These people make the phone calls, find out if there's some interest, and then you have somebody a little more
totally
qualified to make that call.
Yep.
Could you share with us the name of that person that has that cold calling school?
Yeah, it's oh gosh, I only shamefully I only know my
Putting you
affiliate
on the
link.
spot,
I'll
huh?
give you my affiliate link name. It's
Oh, what is that? Can you share?
epiccoldcalling.com. I got really creative with the link. Something.
Oh, that's better though.
Okay, yeah.
So at least they'll go to your site too.
Yeah.
And
Epic Cold Calling. You can help me keep the lights on over here. I'm
yeah,
disgustingly wealthy from this referral, by the way. So I'll cut you guys in for the millions that I make.
yeah. So I bet
That's sarcasm.
So,
Good detect.
yeah, no,
Okay.
I caught it. Yeah,
All
hopefully everybody else did. And yeah, I've been hearing about. I started hearing it from Max Maxwell. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I had him on my show. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's starting to provide some really cool content, and I don't think I mentioned him on the show at all. But I think if anybody is looking for somebody that provides some good value, would probably suggest checking out some of his stuff
He
as
seems
well.
like a really good guy. He's really making a name for himself really quickly.
Yeah, that is pretty quick. Yep. How long have you been doing the podcasting for?
Oh, we just started our 9th year.
Oh, wow. That long, huh?
Yeah, we did. We got started a long time ago.
Yeah. And so that has helped.
Nobody knew what it was.
Oh, really?
Like, what's a podcart? You know, it's like, no, podcast.
So that must really help in building your relationships with people in other markets as well, right?
Yeah. In hindsight, I don't think there could have been a better decision I could have made at that moment. I certainly didn't know what I was doing at the time, and I didn't know what it would turn into. But in hindsight, yeah, it's been a brilliant source of all types of contacts and business for us.
Right. So, hey, Matt, what does the future look like for you guys in your business, in your real estate business?
Yeah, we're very much focused on our fund and you just growing that. And so I was mentioned earlier that we do have an educational platform, but I want to go back to my real estate side of things because we put so much into the education side, and we're still doing it, and that's going to go on forever, and we're doing very well with it. But this last year was the first time it passed up our actual real estate efforts as far as revenue goes. And although I was striving for that because I wanted 2 legitimate streams of income for us, it actually started to feel a little bit like a vulnerability. So we're in the near future, I mean, right now and probably for the next 5 years, we're heavily back into our own acquisitions is probably our primary focus.
Right. And so this fund that you guys set up, could you maybe explain some of the logistics of that? And if somebody's interested in maybe investing with you or how they might set up a fund for themselves, what would something like that look like?
Yeah. So I was shared in the very beginning, I was very attracted to this one strategy called creative acquisition, or this one course called creative acquisition strategies. And a lot of that was about using and leveraging other people's money. And I did very well with that, just with various LLCs. I think it was about 2 years ago, I had like 9 different LLCs with maybe 30 different partners, 30 different structures and different markets, different everything. And it got to be just a bookkeeping nightmare. And it was really tough to keep track of it and the payments and all that stuff. So I just liquidated all of that, redirected it all underneath one umbrella under the fund. And so now I just have one K1 at the end of the year for that instead of all those others. And that has just been a real, it's just simplified everything. So now I don't have to think about that stuff anymore. So that was the biggest reason I did the fund. And then from all those different relationships we had and all those different structures that we had with those LLCs, I just plucked the 3 most profitable strategies that were working the best for us. And we put those 3 strategies inside of the fund. So we do transactional funding for wholesalers. We do buy and then resell on seller financing to resident owners. And so we carry notes that way. And then the 3rd strategy is we just buy and hold our best properties. So those are the 3 strategies we do underneath there. And if someone wanted to invest in that, you have to be an accredited investor. So you have to have a net worth of $1 million or more, excluding your primary residence, or make, I think it's $250,000 a year from your job, or $400,000 if you're married. And so they can just come in and buy a stock. It's kind of like a mutual fund. And then we report quarterly, and then sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. But the the mission is just to continue to go forward and get bigger and bigger.
Oh, wow. How many investors do you currently have in your fund?
I think we have 7.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still relatively young. We just passed our 1-year anniversary. And I think we're about 1.5 years now, 18 months in.
Yeah. And you found that to
Took
be
a while to get it started, but we got good momentum going now.
right. And what sort of documents do you need to set up to have a fund like that?
Yeah, you have to register with the SEC. You have to create your private placement memorandum, your PPM. And so we did that. And that's not cheap.
That's not cheap.
No, it cost us $40,000 to put that together. And so yeah, that's the paperwork that's required
for the PPM. You know, that was about $40,000 along with
that was the attorney fees. Yep.
Wow. And do the investors that come in on the fund share some of that expense with you, or that's all something that you have to carry?
Yeah, you take it up. I mean, you obviously have to put that out up front, but once your fund is open, you can recoup all of those startup expenses.
Right. Awesome.
But it's kind of like in an operating agreement, you can write into that whatever you want to write.
No, I'm good to go.
And the PPM is very much the same way. So there's countless combinations and clauses and creativity that you can insert into a fund.
Right. Awesome. Hey, Danny, do you have any questions on your end? Yeah. So, hey, Matt, do you want to share with the listeners how they can get in touch with you, how they can become involved, that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, our podcast is Epic Real Estate Investing. And if you listen to this podcast, you probably have no problem finding ours. And we just launched a pilot program, because I've done a few of these interviews, and you didn't ask this question, but a common question is, if you lost everything, how would you start over again? And I've been asked that question enough times to where, wow, people really want to know how to do that. So we put together this pilot program of exactly how I would do it. And hey, Matt, it's totally free.
Could you give us a quick breakdown on that before I forget to ask you? We would love to get
Sure. On the pilot program?
Yeah. Like if you had to start over again, what would be the steps you would take? Yeah, that's a good question.
Good.
I'm glad you asked.
Got yourself. It. Yes. See what I did there? It was the Jedi mind trick. No. No, kind of how I started, where I would share with you where I would go through the Craigslist or go through any online classifieds. There's countless versions of Craigslist out there these days. Even the Facebook marketplace is a good spot. But there's people that are looking for stuff and people that have stuff to sell. And I would create those relationships. And what really boomed for me was when I started taking properties that were for sale online, connecting with the person that was selling it, asking permission, can I go to my RIA club tonight and represent your property? And, almost every RIA club will have that section in the beginning of their meetings with the haves and the wants. And you get to stand up there, and I had a sales pitch for it. And initially, what I was doing was just trying to feed myself, because I knew that I was going to get a referral fee if I found a buyer for it. But indirectly, what happened, I could have never, predicted, is I started to really create a reputation for myself in my community. I call it that I came flyer famous, because I always had a property flyer at every single meeting. And from the outside looking in, people are attracted to that. People are afraid to do that particular practice. They're afraid to get up in front of the room. They don't know how you found your deal. They don't know where you're going to get the money. So you attract buyers, you attract sellers, you attract lenders and partners. And that's what really exploded my business, was just getting out there and stirring stuff up. And certainly I sold properties here and there and made some money. But, when someone comes and offers you 35 properties on seller financing, there was a reason for that. It's because I was the hustler in the front of the room. And everyone thought I was just crushing business, and I was just representing other people's business that I found online. So that's how I would start. And you can do that for absolutely free. It takes nothing at all to make that happen. A little bit of patience, but extremely effective.
Right. Yeah. So just start talking to people. Talk to buyers, sellers, wholesalers.
Having a reason to. I think the big thing is when people go to those networking groups or networking events or those RIA clubs, is they're so focused on either they're scared to say anything, or if they do say anything, it's all about them. But if you go in and you're actually providing I hate this expression, but providing value to the people that are there. If you're finding out what other people want, I think Zig Ziglar said it, right? If you give enough people what they want, they'll give you what you want. If you just operate from that premise and just allow that process to happen, I think you go a lot faster, and it's a lot easier to do as well.
Right. Yeah. So, and where can we find that again?
It's at freerealestateinvestingcourse.com. freerealestateinvestingcourse.com.
Cool. And do you also provide coaching, Matt?
Yeah, we do that. Yeah. We've kind of transitioned a little bit less into coaching. Just we kind of give our information away now. But what we've transitioned into is a systems implementation company.
Right.
Where we essentially copy and paste our whole business into our client's business and then just give them the support for free.
Yeah. And is that something you would share the cost with us about and what's involved with that? Or is that something where kind of have to have a one-on-one with somebody?
Yeah, but the only reason I'm not trying to hold back information, it's just that we don't work with everybody, because I really only want to work with people that I can make a difference for. I think the free real estate investing course is the best place for people to start. If they wanted to explore more than that, like if they're already doing some deals and doing some business, then you can go to reiace.com and we can hop on the phone and see if we're going to be a good fit for each other. I just want to make sure that I can actually help you before we can make any sort of commitment.
For sure. Yep. Awesome. And then, and you have your real estate. What markets are you in? Just to let some people know in case they have some properties.
Sure. We're in Cleveland. We're in Columbus, Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Birmingham, Memphis.
Yeah.
Dayton. Thank you.
Hey, so what are the numbers on these single families that you're purchasing on average, would you say? Like say.
Yes, the sweet spot is somewhere between an $80,000 to $120,000 purchase price. And those are going to rent between $800 and $1,200 a month.
Right. And how much work are you putting into these?
Some a lot, some little. We get them rent ready. We make sure that we make sure it fits the neighborhood. We don't overbuild, but we make sure everything works, everything's safe, everything's clean, and everything's to code. And so that's the amount of rehab that we do. And, depending on how you find that property or what condition that property is in is going to determine how much work you got to do.
So if you're all in at $100,000 and you could rent it for $1,200 a month, that's something that would fit your portfolio pretty well.
Yep. I'd buy those all day, every day.
Awesome.
Yep.
And all right. Yeah, I think that's it. Do you have anything else, Matt? Anywhere else you want to send them?
No, that's good. Listen, just come into my world. Listen to the podcast.
Matt, thank you so much for making time for us.
If we get along there, then you'll learn all about how other ways to get in contact with us.
And I really appreciate the value you've provided on your podcast over the years. You're one of the few guys that I've listened to, so I would highly recommend going back and checking out your content. And the best part is a lot of it is free, or I think all of the podcasts are free.
Yep.
But it's been really great for me.
Thanks, Brian.
That's all the time we have for this edition of the program. You can rate the podcast at Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you next week.